From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, listeners. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show. This is Anna Little sitting in for Rick Trader today, and we're speaking with our co-host Sharon Engel. Sharon, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's always great to be with you. I'm reminded of our time in Nashville just a couple of months ago, actually in August, when we went to the National Federation of Republican Assemblies presidential preference conference, and we got to be together face to face, and it's always fun because we have so much to catch up on, and we are good friends. I love this.
Well, I really enjoyed Nashville primarily because we got to hang out at that conference, and you know, listeners, it's great when you have best friend status with the person running the conference. I kind of felt like a VIP, and I remember taking that picture with Donald Trump, and it was just such fun. So thanks so much for all that you do.
Well, it was fun, and we got that picture with Trump up on Facebook. Now, we understand, because we got to meet him face-to-face, what a charismatic person he is and how he draws the crowd. But, of course, at the NFRA, we did a little sheet, a guide, if you will, a voter guide on the presidential candidates, which is available at our website, republicanassemblies.org or nationalrepublicanassemblies.com, and you can go and download that and see how we were able to come up with a score for our presidential candidates. And from that score, then we took the high score and endorsed Ted Cruz over Donald Trump, because he just works out better on paper.
Yeah, and you know, I think Ted Cruz has also been a solid conservative, whereas Trump still has to prove his track record going forward. I mean, certainly we believe that people can take a position early on in life and come to their senses, so to speak, and then come to the conservative later on. So we never rule anybody out. But Ted Cruz has been pretty solid, so I'm not surprised by that endorsement.
Well, and that's exactly why the little instrument that we used, the guide that we used, was so helpful, because we did get to separate, if you will, the tingle up our leg, the pretty speak, from the actual record. And that's what we were really looking at. It's not just what you say, it's what you do. And as you point out, and Ted Cruz is pretty solid conservative. In fact, there's another website that I'll direct our listeners to. It's called Conservative Review. And at Conservative Review, they do review every congressman, every senator, based on their votes and how conservative those votes are, whether they really do what they say. And it's been very interesting to find out. It's a free membership, and they track your representatives based on your zip code, but you can also get in and say, I want to track, for instance, Louis Gohmert. We saw him at the conference, and he's a solid conservative that I always compare votes. If Louis voting for it, that's a good vote. If Louis voting against it, it's probably a good vote. Or maybe you want to track someone else in another state that you're interested in. But the presidential candidates that have records, they're up at Conservative Review as well. And Conservative Review went ahead and did their own scorecard on all of the presidential candidates. So don't just take our word at NFRA. Go to other sites and compare.
Sounds like a good idea, Sharon. What else is on your mind? I know we were talking a little bit offline before we got on the show about the debt ceiling. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, my goodness. Well, if you go today, it's the news is kind of full of what's going on. Dawn of the debt. Congress runs out of cash November 3rd. Have we heard that before? They run out of cash, and instead of cutting back on spending, I know we had a guest yesterday that talked about the $15 million that we spend on a study only, a comparison study between Native Americans in the lower 48 and Native Alaskans. They put $1 million a year into this grant, and we talked quite extensively about other things that we spend money on, and no one ever talks about cutting back. They always say, well, we just have to extend that debt limit and spend more. And now, of course, Harry Reid is manipulating Republicans one more time, saying it's going to be all your fault if there isn't enough money to run the government. Too bad that the debt held by the public has more than doubled under Obama. Let's not talk about that. And let's not talk about the $57,431.65 that's owed by every household in America. That's what it would take to make us whole. So we're just in an amazing place one more time. You know, we think if we don't pass the budget, then we're shutting down government, and now they're going to tell us that we're shutting down government again if we don't extend our spending caps. Anna, where does this stop?
Well, I think it has to stop with we the people. You know, Sharon, I think we have stood up now twice. We've turned over the House of Representatives. Eric Cantor is gone. Kevin McCarthy will not be Speaker. We the people are standing up. Okay, we did take back our Senate last election, and we've got to continue to maintain those majorities. But 2016 is right around the corner, and you can see that the leaders in those presidential polls right now are non-politicians. They are business leaders. They are, well, in one case, there's a doctor up there. In the popular opinion, we the people are speaking and saying, look, we've had enough. You didn't listen to us when we turned over the House. You didn't listen to us when we took back the Senate. Eric Cantor wasn't enough for you. Kevin McCarthy will not be Speaker. That's not enough for you. What do we, the people, have to do to tell you that you can't just keep business as usual? So I think we're doing it, Sharon. I think what we've got to do is change that rhetoric. It's not the Republicans that shut down the government. We are doing the will of the people. It's not conservative Republicans that shut down the government. It's the moderates and the left-wing leaders that would decide to go against the will of the people and then try to blackmail those representatives that want to go with the will of the people into doing the wrong thing. And it's up to we, the people, to stand by our representatives and turn this ship around. Don't you think so?
I do. And I think that we need to understand what really goes on. In the case of the budget, the House of Representatives did the will of the people and said, we will just not put into the budget any funding for Planned Parenthood. There wasn't a line item. When the budget went over to the Senate, there was no funding for Planned Parenthood. It was the Democrats that blocked up and said, we have to have that line item. We have to put that back in the budget. They couldn't just pass the budget without that in there and then have the discussion about whether we wanted to fund Planned Parenthood or not. No, they had to have it in the omnibus budget, if you will, and because the Republicans left it out, didn't fund it, didn't put a line item there, it wasn't that they stopped funding government. They passed a budget that funded all of government, just left that line item off. And we have to start thinking about that's what we need to do. When the House passes a budget, if they leave things out, what they're doing is they're cutting the spending over it on that one item. And we've always said we wanted a line item veto. Well, the Congress has it. All they have to do is just don't fund that item. And that's what they did. And yet, as you said, they were extorted, I believe. Blackmail, you called it.
Yeah, they were definitely extorted. You put that line item in or else, and then they hit the media stream with the Republicans want to take away women's, all these lies. Look, Planned Parenthood is a profitable organization. Why are we subsidizing a profitable organization? That's number one, at a time when hardworking Americans can barely make ends meet. Number two, they've been found to be close to crossing the line with regard to criminal behavior, if not right definitely across that line. I mean, they're obviously caught dismembering live human babies in the womb, and in some cases outside the womb. At least they're killing them or leaving them to die. So, I mean, this has all been caught on video. There's a congressional investigation. I can totally understand Congress not funding any organization that's under that kind of scrutiny right now today. But, of course, the liberal left and some of the moderate Republicans that go along with them, they had to extort the rest of us into funding this organization or else. And, of course, the or else is media lies and then hopefully a negative campaign that will take you out of office. That's extortion. I'm sorry. It certainly looks that way to me.
It is. And, you know, we want our audience to stay with us through this break that we have right now and come back. We're going to be talking about our guests, and we're going to also be talking more about what goes on in Washington, D.C., that we the people can actually make a difference. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. And all of those are .com. We'll be right back with Anna Little, Sharon Engel, and some more of Conservative Commandos radio show right after this break.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners, welcome back to Conservative Commando's radio show with Sharon Angle and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and ccrshow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, roarradio.net. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Sharon, we've got a packed show today. Do you want to talk a little bit about who's going to be on the show?
Well, I sure do. And you have the first guest. Are you ready to introduce our first one?
I am. We'll be speaking in the first segment with David Rubin. He's the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and the founder and president of Shiloh Israel's Children's Fund. He's an author of 4 books, which include The Islamic Tsunami, as well as his most recent book, Sparks from Zion. He has websites at davidrubinisrael.com and shilohisraelchildren.org. And he's going to talk to us today about 10 Days of Hell, the daily terror attacks that continue in Israel. And I think, Sharon, it's so important to talk with him because the Middle East is really heated up, and I think it's really got a global impact.
It does, and we're just not getting it from the lamestream media, and we need to have this important information. That relationship that we have with Israel is just pivotal with all of our foreign policy. At 4:05, Anna, we're going to have Penny Starr, who joined CNSnews.com in 2008 after working for more than 25 years in print media. She's won numerous awards for her reporting, columns, and photography. She's also worked as a media and marketing consultant for clients in the arts and music industries. And as a senior staff writer for CNSnews.com, she covers Congress and the White House, as well as a wide range of cultural issues. Penny's going to be talking to us about Jay Johnson and what he said. We don't know a whole lot about Syrian refugees coming in through to the U.S. through the UN program. This just dovetails with what we're going to be talking about on Israel. And now we've got their neighbors. Syria is just across the Golan Heights from Israel, and they're having at least civil war, if not just outright takeover of their country by ISIL and ISIS. And we are getting their refugees, and we'll want to talk a little bit to Penny Starr about how that looks and if there's anything that we can do about that.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. And then at our 4:35 segment, we're going to speak with Maureen Enner. She's been bringing a fresh perspective to a sometimes hectic and complicated world of Wall Street and trading by sharing her extensive knowledge of the sell and buy side of the business on talk radio. She's been on the sell side of the industry during her tenure at the Liberty Group, during which time she also co-hosted a radio show, Protect Your Assets, with David Hollander on KNBR 680 in San Francisco. She currently co-hosts the show California Connection with frequent CNN contributor Bob Lang, and together they tackle all sorts of topics from sports and entertainment to politics and current events. Her motto, Maureen Enner's motto, is information is power and fun too. So we're really looking forward to speaking with Maureen. She's going to talk to us a little bit about voter integrity. She's concerned, as are, I know you and I as well, Sharon, about illegal immigrants obtaining driver's licenses and perhaps getting the opportunity to vote, even though they're not legally eligible to vote, and how this might benefit some candidates over the others. Obviously, the liberal left is very pro-immigrant, whether documented or not, and certainly seeks to benefit from this. Although they'll never admit that they would do so at the expense of voter integrity. But we all know that to be different, right, Sharon?
Absolutely, we do. And in fact, in California, I hope that we'll be able to talk a little deeper about this with our guests, because in California, the governor just signed into law a bill that allows not only driver's licenses for illegal immigrants, but also voting rights. and they will no longer be prosecuted for voting illegally. This is just huge when it comes to elections, because a flood of illegals, people who have declared their desires for another country, they're under another sovereign nation's authority, and yet they will have an impact upon our elections. And California is huge when it comes to electoral votes and electing the next president. This is a big deal.
Yeah, and the federal law does not allow someone who is not a U.S. citizen to vote in a federal election. So it really is contrary to U.S. law. And the difficulty we have with the election process too often, Sharon, at least in my experience, is that the winner of whatever that election is tends to stay in office even when voter integrity is questioned in the process leading up to their election. And very often whatever changes will be made don't affect the instant election, but future elections after that. So I think you're right. This is a really big problem going into the 2016 presidential race.
It is. And again, Anna, you pointed out in the first segment that it's we the people that are going to make the correction here. And that's exactly what has to happen in 2016. We have to demand that our elections have integrity. And the only way we can make that demand is if we the people go in, clean up the rolls, get the acorn stuff out of our registration rolls, identify these illegals that are voting, that are allowed to vote without prosecution. And we know that's been going on for years, but now California made it a law that they can't be prosecuted. So it's not just the law looking the other way. The law is now allowed legally in California to look the other way. And so it's we the people of these United States that have to say, wait a second, Anna Little's right. The United States law forbids you to vote in elections. You are not a citizen. You're forbidden to vote, and we are challenging your vote the moment you step in the door. We're not going to allow that vote to go into the count. Because as you said, Anna, once the vote goes into the count, that means once the lever on the machine is pushed, that vote becomes an anonymous vote, and it can't be pulled back. There's no way we can identify the vote with the voter and say, wait a second, that was an illegal vote and it shouldn't be counted. We have to stop that before it ever happens.
That's right. And there's too little discussion during election process about challengers and how important they are at the polls. And it isn't a requirement for a challenger to be active in any particular political party. They just have to want voter integrity. I mean, obviously there are challengers that are requested by different candidates, but I think you can challenge right there at the polls if you have any knowledge at all or any question about the eligibility of a person to vote. And by doing that, you force a provisional ballot. And that provisional ballot makes it possible for the voter integrity to be verified by questioning the eligibility of that voter. So it's very important that people do serve as challengers when they're asked to do so, and that there be ample challengers in every polling location. So look into that, listeners, and spread the word that challenging during this presidential election is going to be extremely important, definitely in California, but all across the nation.
You're so right, Anna. And there is a group, Election Integrity Project. They have been working over the last 4.5 years in California and now have brought lawsuits within the state of California. They are the challengers, and they're proactively challenging, and they're ready to take what they've learned so that the rest of us don't have to reinvent the wheel. They're ready to take what they've learned to other states. So I'm excited about the Election Integrity Project.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there is one, and I know that it's important that we maintain voter integrity because that's the backbone of our democratic or our representative democracy that we have here in the United States. If the election doesn't have integrity, well, then our government isn't being run by the people, and that really is the foundation.
That's right. It changes our whole form of government, doesn't it, Anna?
It does. It does.
So we're coming up on our break, and we're going to be able to talk to our first guest right after the break, so we want you to stay with us. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. You can also listen live at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and then around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AM FM 24/7. We'll be right back after this break with Anna Little, Sharon Angle, and our first guest.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, you can check out our websites, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. Or 1 p.m., also Eastern Standard, log on to RoarRadio.net. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our first guest is with us, and the honor of that introduction is mine. David Rubin is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and founder and president of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. David is the author of 4 books, including The Islamic Tsunami, as well as his most recent book, Sparks from Zion. His websites are davidrubinisrael.com and shilohisraelchildren.org. David Rubin, welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you. It's good to be with you.
Well, I'm very glad that you're with us, David, because the Middle East is such a mess right now, and it seems that there's a target painted on Israel, and there's just such tumult and terror all around Israel. The title of your talk today is 10 Days of Hell, Daily Terror Attacks Continuing in Israel. Tell us, how did these terror attacks get started?
Well, it's been going on for quite some time now. We're talking about a solid 2 weeks of attack after attack after attack, stabbings, shootings of a couple with 4 of their children sitting behind them in the back seat. Both those parents were killed, by the way, in that attack. The children are now orphaned. Stabbing attacks one after another. After yesterday, a 70-year-old woman was stabbed. There've just been so many attacks in the past 2 weeks. How did it start? The Palestinian Authority, led by Mahmoud Abbas, who is one of the leaders of world terrorism, decided that it was time to turn on the faucet again. And when they turn on the faucet, that means terrorism. That means attacks on Israeli civilians.
Well, how do you think Israel is responding to this? How do you see them responding today? And what are your thoughts on how they should be responding?
Well, I think, it's always interesting listening to State Department press conference. It's almost like a tragic comedy show because you'll hear the press spokesman and the State Department spokesman, or sometimes if you're really lucky, you get to hear John Kerry making some ridiculous statements about how the building of settlements, which basically means giving a building permit for an Israeli family to expand their house in Judea or Samaria, the so-called West Bank, that's equivalent to acts of terrorism on Israeli civilians. It's just incredible to listen to that, and to it just baffles the mind. But the reality is that Israel hasn't been fighting against the terrorism strongly enough. I think that the real problem is that we're going after the terrorists who commit the actual attacks. Who is the terrorist that stabbed that person? Who is the terrorist who pulled the trigger of that gun. That isn't the way that you stop terrorism. You stop terrorism by having them go on the defense. I learned a long time ago the best defense is good offense, and until Israel really goes on the offensive and makes the Israeli attacks on our enemies much more painful to them than any attacks that they might do to us, that's the point at which the terrorism is going to stop. It's just not going to happen unless we start going after the political sources of that terrorism.
Now, you've outlined some proposals in a recent article entitled A Recipe for Israel's Survival. What is your recipe, and how can Israel provide that recipe today?
Well, it's very simple. It's very direct. Number one, announced to the world that from this day onward, the Oslo Accords, those so-called peace accords, and the Palestinian Authority, which are created, are null and void. And then you go on the offensive. You send the Israel Defense Forces into every PA, Palestinian Authority-controlled city in Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank, seize control, take away their weapons, destroy the Muqata, the Palestinian headquarters, and seize all their computers and all the documents which would prove their complicity in the recent terrorism. And then you assert full Israeli control over the biblical heartland of Israel, over Judea and Samaria. And, you pass a law demanding the expulsion of anyone who is found guilty of launching terror attacks against Israeli civilians. There's no rational reason why a country should allow revolution within its borders. These people are traitors to the country if they ever consider themselves to be a part of Israel. They're people who go against those who are basically putting food on their table. Israel has been enormously generous with the so-called Palestinians, and but instead of appreciating the fact that they live in a modern country that has a good economy, despite everything, in spite of all the war and the heavy tax that it causes people to pay here. Despite all that, they don't appreciate anything. So if somebody says, "I'm going to kill you," and tries to kill you, I don't think that we have an obligation to let them stay here. So I think that those who want to live peacefully, fine, they can live peacefully. Otherwise, Israel has to go after them in a strong way and arrest every single one of them and put them in jail and, yes, possibly expel them from the country.
And what about the political ramifications of that on the world stage? Won't Israel be accused of starting a war if they behave in that way?
Oh, absolutely. The world loves us in the Holocaust. The world loves Israelis when Israelis are going to the gas chambers. The world loves Israel when we're the victim. It's very appealing to support the victim. So if we continue to be victims and we let the terrorists attack us at will, then who knows? We may get a little bit of sympathy from the world. I prefer not to have the world's sympathy, and I prefer to remain alive.
I like that very much, David. Unfortunately, we've got to go to a break. Can you hold on for just 2 minutes, because we are nowhere near finished with you?
Okay, I could do that.
Thank you very much. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .com. We'll be right back with David Rubin after the break.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and CCRshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com, or 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, log on to RoarRadio.net. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. We're speaking this segment with David Rubin, former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and founder and president of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. And he's the author of 4 books, including The Islamic Tsunami and his most recent, Sparks from Zion. David, thank you so much for holding through that break. We do appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
David, I've been remiss in introducing to you my co-host today, Sharon Engel. She's been listening in on the interview, and I know she has a few questions for you. Sharon, take it away.
Thanks so much, Anna, and thank you again, David, for being here. This is such a critical discussion that we're having, and I want you to just explain for our listeners a little bit about the history of Israel, if you will, and the so-called Palestinians. I know that you use that so-called Palestinians because we really don't know who these people are. They're actually kind of glamorized in our media here in the U.S., but we need to know who these people really are. Can you just give us a little rundown of who Palestinians really are?
Oh, sure. I'll give you a capsule summary. The But in order to do that, we have to go back about 2,000 years. Just under 2,000 years ago, the people of Israel, seeing that the Romans, who were the conquerors at that time, were destroying their civilization, and the Jewish people were sovereign in the land of Israel for about 1,000 years, and until the Romans destroyed the Jewish sovereignty in the land and exiled most of the Jews from the land of Israel. And then they changed the name of Israel to Palestina. Okay, at that point, Israel was called Israel and Judea. Those were the two names that were being used. But they destroyed, geographically, they destroyed Israel and called it Palestina. The name kind of stuck for about 2,000 years. Conquerors would come and go, and all different kinds of conquerors. And finally, in 1917, after the British took over control of the land of Israel, they had taken over from the Ottoman Turks, from the Muslim Ottoman Turks, who had brought in a lot of Muslims into the land of Israel. And the British had control of it from 1917 until 1948. Okay, so we know that the word Palestine, or Palestinians, just referred to people who lived in the land of Israel during those 1900 years. But most of the people today who call themselves Palestinians weren't calling themselves Palestinians then, the Arabs of the land of Israel. And they didn't say that. They said that we are members of the Arab nation. And I know this from my father-in-law, who grew up in pre-1948 Israel. And he said that the Jewish children called themselves Jewish Palestinians, and the Arab children just said, we're part of the Arab nation. What's this, Palestinians? So the name Palestinian wasn't convenient for the Arabs, mostly Muslims, until after 1967, when Israel recaptured Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank, and recaptured the Golan Heights and eastern Jerusalem and so on and so forth. And they weren't very happy about that. And they said, we are the Palestinians. We are the indigenous people. Okay? They suddenly turned themselves into an indigenous people. Quite interesting, because the name Palestina, which the Romans invented, actually was, they took it as a Roman derivative of Philistines, who were the arch enemies of Israel in biblical times. So kind of interesting that these Arab Muslims who have chosen to name themselves after the Philistines of biblical times, they had nothing to do with biblical times. Islam was only created in the year 700. It's all very interesting, but how a people is created. But since they've already created themselves as a people, I don't think they have too much to brag about. The Palestine Liberation Organization, that soon evolved into the Palestinian Authority, has been the leader of world terrorism. All of the Islamic terrorism comes from them. It's all from the root of their terrorist organizations, and they have exported their know-how around the world, or at least around the Middle East, to all of these various Islamic terrorist organizations.
So when we're looking at terrorists in the Middle East, we can look straight to the PLO, or the Palestinian Authority, and know that was the training ground. They were the originators of this terror, and they've been perpetrating it on Israel for decades.
4 decades, for sure. And Yasser Arafat, who passed away some years ago, we won't get into that right now, exactly how he passed away, or what disease, what fatal disease he died from, or why. But But Yasser Arafat was the father of modern terrorism. And if he was the father of modern terrorism, and if he was financing all of the terrorism, which he was, then Mahmoud Abbas, his successor and the current leader of the Palestinian Authority, is the son of modern terrorism. And he has continued the financing of the terrorist organizations. And I should point out that the Palestinian Authority is an equal opportunity employer. It doesn't just fund their own homegrown Fatah terrorists. They fund the Hamas terrorists, and they fund the ISIS terrorists and the Islamic Jihad terrorists. Anyone living in the land of Israel who wants to get a financial reward from the Palestinian Authority just has to kill or wound a Jew. And forgive me for being so crass and direct about saying that, but that is the fact. And this has all been proven. It's all documented, and I wrote about it in my book, Peace for Peace, and it has a lot of backup documentation to prove it.
Okay, so to get a subsidy from the Palestinian Authority, all you have to do is kill or wound a Jew, which really brings us right down to follow the money with this terrorism that's going on right now today in Israel, and you'll know what you're saying is the incentive, I guess, for this terror to continue.
Yes, you follow that money trail, and it will lead you to the fella sitting in the Mukata building in Ramallah, Mahmoud Abbas, who has a very nicely trimmed mustache and wears nice suits, but he is a terrorist, and a terrorist as serious as any terrorist we've ever come across, especially because he uses that old Islamic technique of deception to further the cause of Islam. He will lie, he will say that he wants peace, and then with the other hand and with the other language in Arabic, he will speak on their television station and he will call for terrorism. This is what has been going on for years, and the world just looks the other way.
And it seems like that terrorism takes different forms. I know when I was in Israel in the 80s, Israel has a great reforestation plan where they actually get tourists to plant trees, and it has brought back flyways for birds and has truly made a beautiful garden out of a desert country. But the terrorists were burning those forests just to make a point. That was part of their terror at the time that I was there. And at the time that I was there in the 80s, it didn't seem like anybody else in the Arab community wanted the Palestinians to come to their country. George said, not in our country. Is that still the case today?
Oh, certainly. Look, when we send our children to camp, and I notice because I have several children, and I run the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, which heals the trauma in terror victim children, and we run summer camps, and our children learn to do hiking, they learn to swim, they learn to play sports, and they have all kinds of lessons in Jewish ethics, but when it comes to the Palestinians, when they go to summer camp, they go to summer camp to learn to use automatic weapons. They learn to kill Jews. They learn the old quote from the Quran: "There is a Jew hiding behind that tree. Let's go kill him." All you have to do is do a little internet search. You will find this out. This is what they do. And, I wrote about this extensively in my book, The Islamic Tsunami, and in my book, Peace for Peace, which all the way, by the way, all of these books, you can get information about them at davidrubinisrael.com, davidrubinisrael.com. But that's the reality. We build, we plant trees, and they destroy. But sometimes when someone is destroying, you have to fight back.
David, you're absolutely right. This is Anna Little jumping back in. We are right up against a break, so please remind our listeners where they can follow you. We know we can find your books at davidrubinisrael.com. You also have that children's fund. That's ShilohIsraelChildren.org. Is that right?
That is correct. They can go to ShilohIsraelChildren.org. They can get more information about how they can partner with our projects. And, of course, they could find out about the books and get some information that they can spread to people out there.
Thank you so much for all that you do, David, and for spending this time. Come back and see us again soon.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. They are all.com. Sharon Engel and Anna Little will be right back with you after this break on Conservative Commandos Radio.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Deltz playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show today with Anna Little and Sharon Engel, and we have been interviewing guests, and we'll continue to interview those guests. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, www.crsnetwork.com and www.ccrshow.com. On our mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m., log on to roarradio.net. That's ROAR radio.net. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We're going to wait here for just a minute, Anna, to introduce Penny Starr, our next guest. And I would like to just kind of intro this by talking a little bit about our last guest, David Rubin, who talked to us about Israel, and Penny's going to talk to us a little bit about Syria. So let's make that connection for our listeners, okay?
Yes, I think that's very important because, you know, what's going on in Syria right now has all the attention, but the connection between Syria and Palestine and terrorism in general really has not been outlined well. As a matter of fact, it's almost taboo to talk about in the mainstream media. So the background that we just received from David Rubin was very, very important.
That's right. And if our listeners want to hear that background interview, if they've just tuned in and want to know where the term Palestinian actually came from, which I thought was very interesting, that they're the ancient Philistines, which is an invader group that Goliath of Gath, the one that David killed, it was a Philistine, and they've had trouble with those Philistines forever, it seems like. And nobody really wants them. According to David Rubin, you know, Jordan doesn't want them, Syria doesn't want them, and the reason is because they are terrorists. And he pointed out that Yasser Arafat is called the father of modern terrorism. And the problem, of course, is that they have camps for children where they train them to kill or wound a Jew, and they get a subsidy, if you will, from the Palestinian Authority. They give them an incentive to go out there and wound and kill as many Jews as they can. And that seems to be the upshot of what we're seeing here with all this terrorism in Israel right now.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think that that would be acceptable by many of those who claim to have support for Palestine in whatever conflict they perceive it to be with Israel. They would never be in support of that kind of indoctrination of children and the violence that comes from it. So it's really quite interesting.
Yeah, you would think that, as you said, people would be so outraged by that kind of terrorism against children, against women. You know, these are not soldiers that they're attacking. They're civilians. And so we're going to go, and I have the honor and pleasure of introducing our next guest, Anna, who is Penny Starr. Penny Starr joined CNSnews.com in 2008 after working for more than 25 years in print media. She's won numerous awards for her reporting, columns, and photography. She has also worked as a media and marketing consultant for clients in the arts and music industries. And as a senior staff writer for CNSnews.com, she covers Congress and the White House, as well as a wide range of cultural issues. Penny, welcome back to Conservative Commando's radio show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you, Penny. And we were just talking about how timely it is that we want to talk to you about Syria and Syrian refugees coming through the U.S. through a UN program. How does this happen, Penny? Can you describe for us just a little background before we get right into it? Why are we getting these Syrian refugees, first of all, and why are they coming to us through a UN program? What is that program, and what does the UN have to do with the U.S. as far as us being a sovereign nation and accepting refugees?
Well, I'll tell you something. I have been covering this for a number of months and even years as far as immigration and refugees go, and I did not realize that this is the case. There are very few countries, but the U.S. is one of them, who actually relies on the United Nations to process refugees that are then referred to the Department of Homeland Security, their Immigration and Citizenship Services. But we're one of few nations, and in fact, when Jay Johnson mentioned that, he said, as I report, that we don't know a whole lot about these people that are coming into our country, even as he promised to vet them.
Well, and that's actually quite disconcerting, I would say, in the least, and frightening for U.S. citizens. I've had reports from California that unmarked white buses are bringing busloads into California of folks that are definitely Middle Eastern, and they are very frightened that we don't know who these people are.
Right, and the talking point from the administration is that refugees get some of the most thorough screening and vetting before they're allowed into the country. But at the same time, like from the other side of their mouth, they will say things like Jay Johnson did about not knowing a whole lot. And they'll also talk about not having the resources to adequately vet these people. And interestingly, they right now the limit is 70,000 refugees per fiscal year from all around the world. In this last fiscal year, there was I think 2,000 Syrian refugees were allowed to resettle in the U.S., but they're hoping to increase that by 10,000 in the next fiscal year and even more after that.
Now, we're a pretty compassionate country, Penny, and I know that our listeners are thinking, well, we don't want refugees to suffer under tyrannical governments and being killed. We've heard of the attacks that they've made on the Kurds and the Christians there in Syria and Iran, and so we're pretty compassionate. But what is the negative, the downside, if you will? What could be going on with these refugees if we're not vetting them?
Well, I don't have an answer for that, but it's something that needs to be addressed, I believe, by Congress. They should have some hearings on this to just figure out who exactly is coming into our country. I'm traveling on a train, and if I lose you, I apologize. I didn't know that we'd be going through a tunnel on this trip.
That's okay. If we lose you, we'll get you back. And
yeah, I have a feeling we will.
Well, in your article, you talked about that according to the Times, the U.S. will allow 30,000 more immigrants from around the world next year, in addition to the 70,000 refugees it's currently allowed. So this is like almost half. Again, it's almost a 100% increase, it seems like. And that Germany and other Western countries are doing this as well. And then we see an uptick in terrorism. You weren't you weren't willing to talk too much about what that might mean, but isn't there a correlation between this kind of influx and the increase in terrorism, or is that nothing that we should be worried about? Well, I think we have to get her back, John. She must have gone through a tunnel again. Anna, we're just about to go into a break here anyway, so let's just do that, and we'll try to get Penny back on the phone while we're at the break. You are listening to Conservative Commando's radio network's programming, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AM FM 24/7. We'll be right back after this break with Sharon Angle, Anna Little, and hopefully Penny Starr talking about the Syrian refugees that Jay Johnson says we don't know much about.
They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m. log on to roarradio.net. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Anna Little is my co-host today, and we've been talking with Penny Starr, who is a CSNnews.com reporter. She's written an article about Jay Johnson saying we don't know a whole lot about the Syrian refugees coming into the U.S. through the UN program. And in the first segment, we talked about this UN program that kind of overrides U.S. sovereignty as far as refugees. And Penny was just explaining to us the numbers that are coming in. And Penny, thank you so much for coming back on the show after the break. We appreciate your time.
No, thank you. I apologize for the disconnect. Hope it doesn't happen again.
Well, no need to apologize. We make a standing joke here at Conservative Commando's radio show that the NSA is always interfering with our broadcasting, so we'll just blame it on them today. My co-host, Anna Little, has some questions for you, too. Anna, could you take it away?
Thank you so much, Sharon. Penny, I'm glad that you do the work that you do because it's so important that we put some perspective on what is going on with regard to this UN refugee resettlement program. You know, the United States already takes in a lot of refugees. Isn't that true? We take in about 70,000 refugees already each fiscal year, and this additional 30,000, that's close to half again the number of refugees that we're taking in, and that's got to have an impact on the resources available here, and obviously security checks being the first step in all of that. And I wondered about your opinion on this. You know, a lot of these folks are sleepers, right? The ones that we'd be concerned about. I mean, average citizens who are relocating due to violence, that's certainly acceptable. But the sleepers in these terror networks, we don't usually know very much about them, and they're not usually in these databases. Isn't that true?
Well, are you referring to people coming right through, specifically through the refugee program?
Well, I'm referring to the fact that we're resettling refugees that we, quote-unquote, don't know so much about. And, you know, I think some of the reason is because they're sleeping. They're not vetted through these programs. And so if they are terrorists, we may not be able to find that out through our regular channels. Don't you think that's true?
Well, what is true is that there could be some that are being considered that haven't done anything to be placed on a database that would be a red flag. That could be the case, but like I said, the administration is saying that these refugees get some of the strictest vetting, but at the same time say that they don't know much about them. They also complain that they don't have the resources they need to increase the number of refugees that can be accepted for resettlement in the U.S.
Yeah, I think the fact that a lot of these refugees are coming from Syria is significant. There's, you know, quite a lot of violence ongoing there. But, you know, I look at France and some of the terror attacks that have taken place in Paris. And, you know, you don't think of that kind of thing going on in Paris. And I do know that they've had a very large increase in the Muslim demographics in their country generally and in Paris. And I wonder if we can put a connection between those. It's not that every Muslim is a terrorist, but there's a larger percentage of terrorism ongoing because of that radical element. So I wondered if you wanted to speak to that at all.
Well, the interesting thing, back to what I reported in the story, is that as much as I reported on this, I didn't realize that the entry into the refugee process in the United States is through the United Nations. In Europe, that's not the case, and so they have each country has their way of vetting these refugees. These people that want to get refugee status here in the U.S. And I know there's just a handful of countries that rely on the UN, and I was really surprised to know that we're one of them. That to me is of concern.
Yeah, well, you know, in my day job, I do some immigration work, and I do know that every applicant that I represent, when they're looking for immigrant status, lawful immigrant status in the United States, has to go through a rigorous screening. But obviously, it presupposes that there's been some previous activity on the part of that individual. It certainly doesn't rule out any future activity if they're part of a network, and it certainly doesn't track their prior travels. what they're looking at is IDIS, they're looking at Interpol. I mean, those are specific organizations that track past criminal activity or the known entities, involvement with known criminal or terroristic entities. So, it's really kind of difficult, I think, to predict who's going to be a valuable member of society and who's going to be a criminal or a terrorist. And I think, bringing in half again the number of refugees that we already do, we've certainly got a documented impact coming to us. I think the fact that the United States is already the world's top resettlement country, and you've got Australia, Canada, and Nordic countries that also provide a sizable number of places annually, I think that's significant. I wondered if you'd speak to that. How is it that we become the world's top resettlement country?
Well, the people want. That's because these are desirable places to live, and with the pressure that's on our country and others, say that if we're not taking these refugees, that we're somehow not meeting our international or even moral obligations. It's something that has to be thought about too. But I think the countries like that you mentioned, they have, superior quality of life, and people know that. And I also think that some of this, if you can dig deeper, I don't think all of these people are fleeing for the reasons that we believe. I think a lot of people are taking advantage of this whole movement, and if you will, and trying to come to the United States, like many people want to do.
Yeah, I think we also have to talk about economic impacts, too. Obviously, when refugees first come in, they're not established in the community, and these local communities are going to be asked to step up. Can you speak to any of the connection, perhaps, between our federal government's commitment and the local governments that will be impacted?
Well, exactly. That's really a major concern if you talk about economic and other impacts on resources, because these refugees, wherever they're from, they don't end up, in Washington, D.C. or under some federal program. They go to states and cities where these states and cities, although they do get some help from the federal government, they are the ones who have to find room in the schools for the children, and the hospitals, and all the other things. It is a strain, and it does have a huge impact on states and local communities.
Well, I hope to see that there's going to be some addressing of those burdens that will be on these local areas. Penny, we're getting close to a break now. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon. Sharon?
Yes, thank you so much, Penny, for being on our show, and we want you to tell our listeners. We want you to tell our listeners how they can follow your articles and keep abreast of this issue in particular.
All right, thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Give us your website. Do you have a website or someplace where we can send our listeners? We must have lost her again. Well, I know that listeners will want to look for Penny Starr, and I'm sure if you just Google her on the internet, you'll find her. We really appreciate her being a guest with us today. You are listening to Conservative Commando's radio network studios. We're coming to you live from the WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CTR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AM FM 24/7. Anna Little and Sharon Angle will be right back after this break with our final guest for the day, talking about illegal immigration, right up our alley for today's show.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Deltz playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Karen Angle and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. Or 1 p.m., also Eastern Standard, log on to RoarRadio.net. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is with us, and the honor of the introduction is mine. Maureen Enner has been bringing a fresh perspective to the sometimes hectic and complicated world of Wall Street and trading by sharing her extensive knowledge of the sell and buy sides of the business on talk radio. Maureen has worked on the sell side of the industry during her tenure at the Liberty Group, during which time she also co-hosted the radio show Protect Your Assets with David Hollander on KNBR 680 in San Francisco. She currently co-hosts the show California Connection with frequent CNN contributor Bob Lang. Together they tackle all sorts of topics from sports and entertainment to politics and current events. Maureen Enner's motto is information is power and fun too. Maureen, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you very much. Wow, I love that introduction. I could use you.
Well, it's all true, Maureen. You earned it.
Thank you. I forget to look at my own bio every once in a while.
Well, Maureen, you're here to talk to us about a really important issue, and that is about illegal immigration and voter integrity, and the two are connected. Some people have actually predicted that there would eventually become a pathway for illegals to vote in elections, and that might explain liberal leniency when it comes to undocumented immigrants. And it seems like we might have come a step closer to that reality because Jerry Brown has just followed Oregon's steps in signing a Motor Voter Act, and illegal immigrants are now eligible for obtaining driver's licenses. So talk to us a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, exactly. We followed Oregon's lead on this Saturday, and Jerry Brown free-willingly signed in AB 1461 and into law that illegals will go to the DMV, which was made legal January of this year, January 1st, 2015. It became legal for illegals to obtain a California state driver's license. So now in California, there's over 500,000 illegals with California state driver's licenses, and to this year to date, it has cost the state of California almost $68 million. Because all that is required is costs $28 to show that you have 2 weeks of insurance. You take that down to the DMV and you get your license. Now, in the county of Los Angeles, which is an enormous county, it's a very large county, 50% of all motor vehicle accidents turn out to be uninsured motorists, and those are illegals who do not follow continuing to pay their insurance. They pay the one-time $28 fee, take it to the DMV and get their license. So now, when they go and renew their driver's licenses or continue to go and get their driver's licenses, they will automatically be enrolled to vote. Interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting, because a driver's license does not necessarily entitle a person to citizenship in the United States, which is the requirement to vote. So how is it you're supposed to know when a voter coming in, registered to vote, whether that person is actually eligible or not? And do you have to challenge everyone with a driver's license now? This is crazy.
Well, in your state of New Jersey, I did some research, and New Jersey does not allow this, and New Jersey requires, to get a driver's license, you have to require proof of citizenship. California does
That's
not.
Right.
Now, another interesting point is the California voter code prior to this AB bill that Jerry Brown just put into action on Saturday. The original code read, the original law read, that you had to sign, you either had to use the last four of your Social Security, you had to use your ID number, or you had to use a certain voter number that was given to you, or they just accepted your signature that matched your signature on your voter registration card. So really, to be honest, we've been doing this for a long time, allowing illegals to just go to the polls. It's very easy. When I voted in the last presidential election in my neighborhood polling station, I went out and took my ID out to show them, and they said, oh, no, we can't ask for ID. It's discriminatory. We're not allowed to ask for your ID. I did it just because I wanted to see what they would say. So last November, California had the lowest percentage of voting. We had the lowest turnout rate, which, in my opinion, this is just going to continue to dwindle, because why should we go to the polls and vote when the illegals are voting, and it is absolutely corralled so that they are voting for the Democrats who've given them everything in this state.
Well, you know, Maureen, you're in good company in being dissatisfied with this action on the part of Jerry Brown. True the Vote founder Catherine Engelbrecht also stated that this bill is terrible. It already makes a bad situation much, much worse, and that California's registration databases lack the necessary safeguards to keep non-citizens off the voter rolls. So Catherine obviously agrees with you, and she's heading up, or she's founded True the Vote, which is an effort to improve voter integrity nationwide in the face of voter fraud. They're not only identifying it, but addressing it. And then, obviously, there are people on the other side who support this bill, and they say that it removes possible obstacles to a citizen exercising their right to vote. However, if the citizen doesn't have an obstacle here that's been eliminated. I mean, the driver's license is being presented to someone who was formerly ineligible for that driver's license. This has nothing to do with obstacles to a citizen exercising a right to vote. Isn't that true?
No, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. But you have to, in 1993, President Clinton he made this a national, that everybody had he wanted everyone to be able to vote, no matter if you were here illegally or illegally, which a lot of people don't remember. But now this is coming back into this. California is bringing this back into the news. So, from what I understand, once these illegals have gone to get their driver's license, they're not categorized in any way that we're able to determine if they're here legally or illegally. They're just drivers. They're just California drivers. So there again, we have no way of tracking how are we going to sort who has an illegal driver's license, who has a legal driver's license? I mean, because the state doesn't look at it that way. They look at that they all have legal driver's licenses. So then we get to the next section. Are they here legally or illegally? There is no way to track that. The state does not want to do that. That might offend them. We don't want to offend these people who've come here illegally. I don't get it. I don't understand how we are now going to be able to process these.
Well, I think it is problematic. I mean, the license does carry phrases, federal limits apply, and not valid for official federal purposes. But as you stated, they're not even checking ID when you vote. So it's really quite problematic. And I think at this point, voter integrity is definitely in question. We do have to go to a break to identify the station, Maureen. Can you hold on for just about 2 minutes while we do that?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all.com. Sharon Engel and Anna Little will be right back with you after the break, speaking with Maureen Enner and voter fraud and illegals.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night at Concord Bridge in Trenton. for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today, the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Angle and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. Or at 1 p.m., also Eastern Standard, log on to roarradio.net. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We're speaking this segment with Maureen Enner. She's been talking to us about the illegals and their right to a driver's license, a la Jerry Brown, following in Oregon steps, and the connection to voter fraud and the possibility of these now licensed drivers not legally present in the United States exercising their right to vote. Maureen, thank you so much for waiting through that break. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I just wanted to say...
I've been remiss in telling you about Sharon Angle, my co-host. She's actually been hanging on through this interview, and she's got a few questions for you. Sharon, take it away.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. It's good to talk with you, Maureen, and thank you so much for being our guest and talking about what we feel is really an important item, considering the other guests that we've had on our shows today. We talked to David Rubin about terrorism in Israel, and then we talked to Penny Starr about the Syrian refugees that are coming as a result of the terrorism there in Syria, and that we don't even know who these folks are, really. They're not being carefully vetted. And now we're talking to you that these refugees and others like them are going to be allowed to vote in the largest population, I believe, in the State of the Union of voters. They have so many electoral votes that it's hardly worthwhile for the rest of us to vote. They really do seem to be able to make or break an election with the California vote. So I'm here on a website, Election Integrity Project, and you quote them in your article, and they have said that this will make a fundamental change in our democracy. Is that how you see it too?
Yes, and actually they have, that group has tried, they have said that they're going to veto this bill. They're the only group that I've seen so far that has stood up to say that they're going to demand a veto of this bill, which, God bless them, I wish them luck. The Department of California State Department
I know that it seems that there is a lawsuit that should be filed, since this goes right against our Constitution. They point out that even the constitutional laws in California say that you must be 18 years of age and a citizen of California and the United States to have the right to register and then to vote. But by sweeping the penalties away, saying it's not
suggest that you can look the other way when someone comes in to vote. We're not going to penalize them even if you catch them in the act. And is that kind of how you read the law as well, that Governor Brown has signed?
I do. And the concern, you raised a good point. The second concern is anybody who has an ID, a California ID, which means you have to be, I think, 16 to get that, or maybe even 15, and a driver's license. So they can be giving out, somebody could be 15 years old and they're registering them to vote. And they can be going to the polls and voting because nobody's going to be there to verify or check. As long as you show up on the voter registrar, which came from the motor vehicles, it doesn't matter. Now, let's talk about voter fraud. Let's talk about people voting 3 or 4 or 5 different times. It's absolutely, how are they going to be able to keep track of this? There's no way that they, as I mentioned earlier, there's no way that they're going to be putting, these are, illegal driver's license holders. They're not going to be in any other kind of a category other than they're driving. California Department of Motor Vehicles just requires that you having a driver's license be the affidavit to making you eligible to vote. Now, explain that to me. How can that be logical? You don't need a birth certificate. I took my son to get his driver's license in high school. I had to have more paperwork than Carter had pills. I mean, but you can now just walk over the border, given every type of, any kind of amnesty you want. You're given every kind of form of welfare, every penny you can collect, and now you can go and have a driver's license, and then you can vote. And you know you're going to vote Democrat because they're the ones who gave you everything.
Well, I thought this was an amazing statement that Secretary of State Padilla, and this is California's Secretary of State, said, the new Motor Voter Act will make our democracy stronger by removing a key barrier to voting for millions of California citizens. Citizens should not be required to opt into their fundamental right to vote. We do not have to opt into other rights such as free speech and due process. He talks citizens, but this law does not apply to citizens, does it, Maureen?
No, it does not. And the other thing, in Jerry Brown's defense, he is saying this is what he feels is going to help bigger turnouts at the polls because we had such a low turnout last November. So he's trying to tell everyone this is going to encourage better turnout. No, it's not. More than half the driver's licenses that were issued this year were issued all to illegals in California. And they are selling, over the border, they are selling unqualified people. California driver's licenses are going for $5,000 a pop. You know they're coming over here. They're getting a license because it's easy as pie to go get a driver's license. There's no restrictions to get a driver's license. And then they're making a big business and they're going and selling them across the border.
It is just outrageous what this porous border has led to, Maureen. Do you see any opportunities for us, we the people? What can we do? Because this is obviously coming to a state near you. You mentioned Oregon. I live in Nevada. We already have driver's license for illegals. And so once you allow them to get their driver's license, what keeps another law just saying we're not going to prosecute if they do an illegal activity, which is what voting without being a citizen is. It's illegal. And yet we're saying that doesn't count. We are no longer a rule of law nation where this is concerned. So how do we, the citizens, provide the solution? What can we do?
Well, unfortunately, this has been coming on over the last 20 to 25 years. As I said, President Clinton really was the one who started this on a national level. And it's just become something that, if you say anything about it, you're automatically considered you're discriminatory, you're racist, you are evil, you don't feel sorry for people. It's become such an identity that these illegals have they're illegals. I refuse to call them undocumented. They never had documents to be documented and they didn't lose them. They're illegal. You cross the border or stay over your visa, you're here illegally, you should have no rights. We now, in California, you can take the California State Bar if you're illegal. You can have a driver's license, and now you can vote. Those are all pretty important things that you can do while being here illegally, not to mention all of the education costs and the university costs and everything else that applies to it. I'm saying I am not here to represent a Republican president yet. I'm not promoting anyone, but I do believe this year we will go Republican. I believe the White House will go Republican, and I think that California was a very liberal state 30 years ago, and when Ronald Reagan came in, it flipped the switch, and we became then a red state. We were then a very Republican state. I think we are now at that time where things are just getting so insane that we need a change from the top, and I feel it coming. I really do. California, if California goes, then so goes the nation. That has been said to me from the time I was a child. California is one of the most important states in the union. We may go blue this election, but I feel the rest of the country is going to go red, and I feel this is the time. I feel that it's Jerry Brown was governor in the late 70s when I was in junior high. A lot of people don't remember that. And, boy, there were swift changes when Reagan came into office, so that's the only thing that I can hope for, and then our voices are going to be heard. Right now, our voices are not heard.
Well, and you're so correct, and I think there is something that citizens can do, but it is going to take an involvement, and we can no longer say that fraud does not happen in our elections. In fact, it's being perpetrated on us by our government, because this is just quintessential fraud right here, right now with this new law. And I think we need to really get proactive with that. It seems like there's a lawsuit that should be filed against the state of California for passing such an illegal law. Is that, do you hear anything about something like that happening?
I haven't heard anything of that happening. I've just heard, everybody, and he did this, Governor Brown did this on a Saturday. That's even more smarmy. He just came in on a Saturday and signed this into bill, like nobody was going to pay attention. I mean, signed it into law. Signs this bill on a Saturday. Here in California, people are just, as long as the weather's nice and the beaches are good, that's really all people care about. It's so laid back here that it's liberal is such the majority here.
Well, Maureen, this is Anna Little, and unfortunately our time is up. Would you just remind our listeners where they can follow you? I know you've got that show that you co-host, California Connection, with Bob Len.
Yes.
Where else can people follow you?
I'm on California Connection every Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock on LA Talk Radio. You can go to latalkradio.com. You can find our shows. They're all there. We're very good friends with Mike Reagan. He's been on our show quite a bit. And, we have we try to fight the fight out here in California on California Connection.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Keep up the great work and come back and see us soon.
I would love to. Thank you, and goodbye, New Jersey.
Well, Sharon, this has been a packed show. I want to quickly go over. We want to thank David Rubin for spending time with us, and Penny Starr and Maureen Enner. And Sharon, thank you so much for co-hosting. It's always so much fun when we get to work together. I guess we're out of time. We got to run. So we'll see everybody tomorrow on the radio.